This is Pete Urich with Soccer Life Balance, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this concept that I've been thinking about recently and developing. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to do two things that I really hate for this. Number one is talking to myself on video, and number two is drawing. I'm an absolutely horrible artist, but hopefully I didn't do too bad of a job here. Now, the concept that I've been thinking about is I've been thinking about all of those things that each and every one of us should be doing on a daily basis. And that concept of soccer life balance has always been about how does the game overlap with life? How do they coalesce? How do they come together? And ways that we can use soccer as a representation for the struggles that we go through in life. And I started thinking about the game, and I started thinking about the lines on the field and all of the different ways that they get used. And some of them are used all the time, and some of them are almost never used. Like the penalty spot is very rarely used, okay? But the center circle, we have to use it at least twice per game, if not more. And then the sidelines and the end lines get used all of the time. So what I started to think about was, okay, if we've got these things in the game that we use on a variable basis, do they overlap with, or can they be made to overlap with some of the things that we deal with on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, and could they kind of form a representation of how it is that we exist in this world. All right. And so what I decided to do was decided to break it down into a few different things, and I'm going to kind of run through the defensive half of your life. Okay? Now, the reason why I refer to it as the defensive half of your life will become evident eventually, but for right now, just recognize that this is the goal that we're defending, all right? And I'm going to get into what the goal represents and everything like that in a few minutes. But to start out, the sidelines, okay? They're the thing that encase the entire game. And so if you have a narrow field, it puts a lot more pressure on the goal because you've got a lot more congestion, there's a lot more proximity to the goal at all times. So on the defensive side, anytime that the team has, the opposite team has the possibility of being closer to your goal, it puts you in more danger, all right? And we'll talk about that a little bit farther. But I started thinking about what are some of the things that would make up the sidelines that are encasing your life and the game in general. So as I was thinking about it, the four tenets or the four really important things came up. All right. First one, all right, is the most important thing. All right. No matter what, this is the most important thing. Okay. And I'll ask you the quick question and give you a pause to think about it for a second. What's the most important thing that you are going to do today? Just think for a second. And there you go, I just gave you a hint, okay? The most important thing that you're going to do today is breathe, okay? Now, generally speaking, when I ask people this question, they don't think of that word at all, okay? They think of doing homework, they think of going to work, they think of relationships or whatever. But the most important thing that you are going to do today is breathe, okay? If you stop doing it for more than about 10 minutes, you're dead. So recognizing the fact that this is the most important thing. Now, this is a really trivial type of thing when you keep it on the very base level. Okay, yes, I've got to breathe, but why is that important to me? You know, it's something that just happens automatically, and there's the problem, okay? The problem is that it's so automatic that we overlook it. Okay, we overlook the importance of breath. Now, I'm not talking about the general breathing that you do on a regular basis, okay? I'm talking about the development of a breath practice, okay? That at least once a day, preferably twice a day, and if you want to go 3 times a day, and if you think of any of those important maintenance type things that you have to do on a regular basis, Things like brushing your teeth, things like eating, those types of things, showering. They are usually once or twice, maybe 3 times a day. All right, so that's what I'm going to ask you to do. And breathing practice is all about, number one, it's increasing your VO2 max. And there's a lot of good reasons for that. I'm not going to get into the science of breathing and everything like that. And also, breath work is important depending on how you end up doing it. And the guy that I have a tendency to follow on this front is a guy named Wim Hof. And he has a very specific breath pattern. It's 40 breaths using your belly, diaphragm breathing into your chest, and then holding your breath for a minute to a minute and a half, and then taking in a recovery breath. There's all of these different combinations of breath practice that he has, and if you look up his stuff on YouTube, that's what I use on a regular basis. And again, trying to use that at least once, maybe twice a day. Okay. If you didn't get this first one, you probably now figure out where I'm going with the sidelines here on this side of the field at least. And the second most important is going to be hydration, okay? Now here's the thing is, hydration is extremely important, but it's again something that we have a tendency to overlook, all right? Now the idea of staying hydrated, a lot of people will say, oh, well, I drank a cup of coffee, I drank this, I drank that. All right, water is your best resource for hydration, okay? Soda is not water, iced tea is not water, coffee is not water. They have water in it, but ultimately, the whole entire thing is you want to have water as the major source of hydration for you. Now, a lot of people will say the eight glasses of water a day. Obviously, that's a generalization. The number that I've grown comfortable with over the years is half your body weight in ounces. So that sounds like math. It's not really actually that difficult. So if you were to weigh 150 pounds, half of your weight is 75 pounds, and therefore 75 ounces. Now a really good resource is going to be a bottle like this. This is 50 ounces of water, 50 fluid ounces. So 1.5 of these would take care of that 150 pound person. If you're 200 pounds, half of your weight, 100 pounds, in ounces, and you're doing 2 of those, okay? Makes for a nice simple way to remember how you're going to take care of that. So again, that's half your weight in ounces, okay? Now, on the other side of the field, the other sideline is going to be our food intake, okay? Our diet. Now, diet is going to be something that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, okay? There are all kinds of different thought processes on, what diet you should be following, whether it's a plant-based diet, going all vegan. There are people who are all about the carnivore diet and all of that stuff. So, I am not here to prescribe for you 100% a diet. The thing is that you've got to find something that works for you. Not what you want to work for you, but what actually does work for you. Recognizing that your job is to fuel your body, not to feed your cravings. All right, so recognizing the fact that, yes, all of those delicious things that you want to eat, all right, McDonald's, ice cream, those types of things, while they may feed that hunger that you have for tasty things, it's probably not good fuel. So figuring out a way to fuel your body on a regular basis is going to be the key component to this. Because I'm using the idea of sidelines here, and ultimately, as I'll talk about here in just a moment, is what we want to have happen is we want to move the sideline, we want to elongate these sidelines, but that's not by eating more food, it's by eating food better, eating better food. And the same thing with the breath practice, okay? Breath practice is going to have a diminishing rate of returns if you do this 15 times a day. Is that going to be much better than doing it 2 or 3 times? Probably not. And the same thing with hydration. You know, there's a certain point where you can't drink anymore. So this is more about functionality than it is about pure numbers 100%, okay? So again, diet, think, fuel, all right? Now, I'm basing this partially under the human needs category, and I'm going to put down shelter as the 4th sideline piece when you're talking about things that you need in order to protect yourself, all right? So protect your goal, and we'll get into, again, what the goal is in just a moment. All right. Now, ultimately, shelter, we're not talking about housing because that's not something that you need to search out on a daily basis, most likely. At least I hope. Hopefully everybody's in a good spot. But shelter is mental safety is what I'm going to refer to this as. Now the reason why I'm referring to this as mental safety is because of the fact that in our modern society, we seem to be in an epidemic of anxiety, depression. Suicide is a huge problem. And recognizing the fact that one of the reasons why people are anxious is because they don't feel safe. Okay? People become depressed and they feel anxious because of the fact that they don't feel mentally safe. They don't feel like they're in control of the world or that the world is a safe place for them to be. Okay? And again, that's going to relate to what we're doing. So when we're talking about mental safety, there is a variety of different things that I'm going to suggest, but the main thing that I'm going to look for you to do here, because we're talking about things that you're doing as daily practices, okay? Breath work, hydration, diet. What's your practice with regards to mental safety? It's mainly going to be around journaling and also a visualization practice, okay? Basically what I want you to be doing is on a daily basis, in the morning, having your 10 prompts, okay? And what I'm going to suggest is that you have written down 10 questions that you are asking yourself on a daily basis when you get up in the morning that prompt you for how the day is going to go. Because most of the time, and I think this is one of the reasons why we're in have such a problem with anxiety and depression at the moment, is most of the time when people wake up in the morning, the first thing that they do is they go to their phone or some other electronic device, and they're looking at what the world is putting onto them before they've even thought about who they are, what they're going to do today, what are their priorities for that particular day. Because in the end, the world doesn't care about your priorities, it cares about its own. So what we want to do is, with those 10 prompts, each and every morning, is set up the day for success by asking yourself questions on a daily basis that actually take care of that for you, okay? Asking yourself questions like, what can I do today to improve my health? It's a great question, all right? Because then it brings things like this into focus rather than thrusting the problems of the world onto your shoulders before you've even given a thought to what is your priority, okay? So these are going to be the defensive area sidelines, the things that are going to encapsulate your life. And what are we trying to do here? Okay? Well, what we're trying to do protect, to a certain extent, you getting scored on with your self-esteem, okay? Now, basically what I'm talking about here is the idea of self-esteem hits, okay? Basically, times where you are going to start to feel worse about yourself, okay? Now, this is a difficult thing to talk about, and ultimately, as I said, some of these lines are going to be used all the time, and then some of these lines are going to be just every once in a while. Now, the penalty box if you think of the general soccer game, it's going to be that area where anxiety is high. If the other team has the ball inside of your penalty box, that's a time to be anxious, the time to be thinking about how are you protecting your goal at all costs. And that is going to be the same situation with what we're dealing with here, okay? Is you have an area of anxiety. Now, if you're not taking care of your breath practice on a regular basis, if you're not well hydrated, if your diet is in the crapper, if your mental safety, okay, what does that do to our field? It shortens the sidelines. And what happens eventually over time is the sidelines shorten, and then your penalty box is where you start your day. Every single day, at the beginning of the day, you start right in that center circle, and you end up with a situation where you're in anxiety right at the beginning of the day because you haven't taken care of the breath work, the hydration, the shelter, and the diet, okay? And the one other one that I would put in here, but this is such a weird one because of the fact that it's different for almost everybody, is the idea, and I'm going to put it down here at the bottom, of sleep. Sleep is extremely important. Sleep is a huge component. But the thing is certain people, 10 hours, they need it in order to be functional. And then some people, 5 hours is that sweet spot for them. And so again, this is going to be more about you and your personal preferences, needs and everything like that. Because ultimately what happens is, again, as we shorten up these sidelines with, being deficient in one or all of these areas, then it puts us into a situation where all of a sudden our anxiety is at its peak almost as soon as we wake up in the morning, because it doesn't take much to get the ball into our penalty box as soon as the day starts. And one other thing, and this is one of those key areas where I look at the field and I see the overlaps, is the center circle gets used at least twice a day. And this is, again, one of those things that I think that you should use twice a day. Is having a gratitude practice, okay? A practice of saying thank you inside of your head to yourself. It's one of those things that I do first thing in the morning before my feet hit the ground, and then right before I put my head on the pillow, I say thank you for the things that I am grateful for in my life. Okay. Now, for me at the moment, the first place that I go is for my children. The second place I go is for my wife. Third place I go is for my friends, and then the opportunities that I have, and all the positive things that I have in my life. And at first, it's going to feel a little cheesy, and it's going to feel a little weird, and you might not even be able to think of that many things, depending on how much you're struggling. But the whole entire thing is this is a key practice to keeping that anxiety just that farther back. Because at least if none of these are taken care of to the level that they should be, if you're at a deficit with all of those to start off, doing this will keep that penalty box away from your situation. All right? And the thing about anxiety, and it's the thing that we're going to look at on the other side, is Anxiety is going to be about your focus. What is it that you are focused on? All right, the penalty box is all about focus. Here, it's focused on protection. There, we're going to get there eventually. All right, so hopefully this was at least a good graphic organizer or a thought process for you. And underlying all of this stuff, you know, is the idea of fear, okay? That's the end line. That's the thing that you want to try to push back. Because even though I've got the goal right here, what we can do, and it's kind of the way that I'm thinking about things right now, if we can extend these sidelines so that they are in better shape, not only are you getting that penalty box away from your starting point each day, but you're also putting goals farther back, okay? Where the idea of those self-esteem hits are not so easy for other people and other situations to take a hit on you, okay? The idea of embarrassment, the idea of somebody hurting your feelings and things like that. Those types of things start to move farther and farther back because it's less likely that you're going to be able to, or you're going to be put into a situation where you're going to feel those feelings because of the fact that you're in a good spot in most of these areas. Okay, so hopefully this was helpful. Again, my name is Pete Urich. This was Soccer Life Balance, and we'll see you next time.